It is Friday, January 10th, 2025. This is another edition of Baseball Today. That is not my man, Trevor Plouffe. That is my girl, Katie Woo. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan along for the ride as well. You know Katie these days from her brand new podcast, Cardinals Territory. We congratulate you on that. How's that going, by the way, you and Trevor Rosenthal?
Well, thanks, Rosie. It's going great, and I think the reason it was able to start so seamlessly is because all the practice you've given me here, John
Mm,
Boy Media. And I do want to say, and when we first launched the show, a couple of the comments, a few of them actually, were regular viewers from your show that came over and supported, and I thought that was really cool. They weren't necessarily Cardinals fans, but just kind of came to check it out, and that's really awesome. So if that was you, thank you. That was very cool to see, especially to just kind of see the love shared between these two platforms here. So
yeah, well, that's the thing is that there's plenty of space for everybody. We are rooting for you. You've been such a good person for us and our entire John Boy Media company, whether you're working on one of Jake's shows or helping us out here. We always love utilizing your brain and your humor and everything else. In fact, you're way too smart for most of us here.
no.
Um, but unfortunately, part of the reason you're here today is because of what's gone on in Southern California. Trevor and his family have been affected by the fires. And so he can't record today, and we're thinking of him and obviously all the people here in Southern California. For those of you that have been watching it, and I'll just kind of fill you in, it's a disaster here. It really is, and it's terribly sad what has happened to so many communities, particularly the Pacific Palisades, which, if you haven't traveled to Southern California, is just a stunningly beautiful community. And unfortunately, the entire thing has been ravaged, and it looks like a bomb has gone off there, and all of these homes are going to be displaced. And who knows if the community will rebuild. It's going to take several years, and it's just a real disheartening thing. It's a little bit like living through the start of the pandemic again from that standpoint, where you're kind of glued to your television, you're in your house, you're packed up, you're ready to go because you just don't know which way these winds are going. And it's terribly sad. It's frustrating, it's helpless, and we're just thinking good things for Plouffe and his family and everybody that is obviously being affected. And want to thank everybody on the front lines. My God, these firefighters and first responders and police and everybody that's doing their job. It's just incredible to see them 24/7 what they're cranking out.
Couldn't said any better, Rosie. It's disheartening. It's devastating. I spent a lot of time in Southern California. I
Mhm.
have a lot of friends and family down there, and I don't even want to turn on the TV because the images are they're just like etched in your mind because these are, it's not something that's going to be easily repaired. And I can't imagine being in Southern California right now, not knowing if you're going to have to get up and leave everything that you have in a minute's notice. And these stories from people are heartbreaking to see, to read about. Just hope that everyone is saved. Obviously thinking of you, Coach Trev, and I'm thinking of you too, Rosie. It's a very sad
Yeah.
situation for everyone involved.
It is. It's alarming when you're just packed up, and that was I think the toughest part was you're going through your house and you're like, okay, you've got about 5 suitcases or 6 suitcases. What are you going to take?
Right.
What are you going to take outside of a couple days worth of clothes? And that is, I mean, my wife cleared out all the baby pictures. Our kids are
Of
old enough
course,
and
of course.
they're not digital. So you got to get what you can get and save. And so it's been quite an exercise. Quite an exercise. We appreciate everybody's support. A lot of people have been reaching out on social media to make sure we're okay. Hopefully, Trev will rejoin us early next week whenever we do our next show, and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, we really are appreciative of your friendship and your professionalism. And let's get to it. Let's talk a little baseball if we don't
Do
mind
it.
today. The reason I'm wearing a San Francisco Giants hat, they did make a move the other day. Justin Verlander, 1 for 15 to be somewhere behind Logan Webb in that rotation. He's soon to be 42. In your opinion, is this a sign of desperation or a good sign?
When I first saw the news come in, I was a little confused just because I didn't really think that was the direction the Giants were going in. And you look at their rotation right now. I love their top of their rotation. They have Logan Webb, absolute stud, total ace caliber kind of pitcher, followed by Robbie Ray. But there's not a lot of established depth after that. There are guys that have proven themselves that they can pitch in some, and hold their role in the middle rotation. You're looking at Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks. I know that he's last year was coming back from being a reliever to a starter. But what Justin Verlander is the veteran experience. And that's super valuable for a relatively young rotation. And look, I know he didn't pitch over 100 innings last year, but he's still Justin Verlander. And he's one of those players that commands respect when he walks in a room. And I think he'll be very good for that next core of Giants pitchers. $15 million. I'm not quite sure what the Giants spending limits, what they are. I'm not quite sure what Buster Posey is as the president of baseball operations just yet. But once I got over just kind of the initial shock, I did start to think, hey, you know what? This probably does make sense just based on the age and overall experience of that Giants rotation.
So let's see what's transpired with their pitching staff here in the offseason. They have lost a two-time Cy Young Award winner in Blake Snell.
Hmm.
They missed out on a former Cy Young Award winner in Corbin Burns.
Correct.
So that stuff happens. You could go the trade route, I suppose, or you could go free agency. And are there younger guys that you could have for a few years? Yes. But did you know that last year was the first time in their respective careers that Justin Verlander's WAR was lower than Jack Flaherty's? So if that's the way you want to go, and I'm a Jack Flaherty fan. I thought he did a tremendous job in Detroit and then with the Dodgers to kind of revamp his career. But even his best year in 2019 with the Cardinals, where I think he finished top 5 in the Cy Young voting,
Dead.
his WAR was nearly 6. That year, Justin Verlander's was nearly 7.5. He won the Cy Young just a couple of years ago. So is it possible that last year could be the start of falling off a cliff? Could, but that's why you give him a 1-year deal. And I think having he and Logan Webb and Robbie Ray all at the top of the rotation, a couple of guys that have won Cy Youngs and one guy who's finished, I think, runner-up before, that's good for the rest of the young rotation. And by the way, if things go sideways, just trade him back to Houston.
Right.
I mean, they already have a pipeline set up. It's like they probably have it. Buster Posey probably has a button in his office. It comes with the purchase of Justin Verlander. It says, hit this if you want to trade him to Houston. Like, you don't really
Right.
have to negotiating. It kind of
Very
spits
quick.
it out.
Seamless flight back to Houston. No,
Yeah.
I like it. And I think Logan Webb is a guy that's going to be a household name for the Giants for a very long time. And having Justin Verlander to bounce ideas off, bounce experiences off, is only going to make Logan Webb that much better. And I already think that he is exactly what the Giants need in that rotation. So was I surprised that it wasn't one of the, like a Nick Pivetta or a Jack Flaherty? A little bit, but again, once you start looking at the rotation, they have a lot of options in terms of depth, just not a lot of experience depth. And I think that does matter, especially when you're trying to compete in that powerhouse of a division in the National League West.
Yeah, by the way, Pivetta still comes with that qualifying offer attached. Jack Flaherty does not. We'll see if the Giants are going to make any more moves in the future. I can't call the Athletics a Bay Area team, right? I mean, Sacramento does not count.
No, Sacramento's not the Bay. I just call them the No City A's.
Yeah, I like that. The No City A's. So since we last spoke, Brent Rooker got an extension from the A's, 5 years, $60 million. It's a really good deal for a guy who's 30 years old. He has gone from a failed first rounder to one of the best right-handed bats we have in the American League.
I was thinking about this yesterday, probably a little more than exactly 2 years ago at this time. The conversations I was having with Dustin were, hey, like, do we want to call David and ask for our release so we can try to go to Japan? Like, that was a very real consideration. Like, do we want to get to that point? And now the conversations we were having was like, hey, David wants to give you the $60 million. Like, do you want that or no? And I was like, yeah, I think, well, we should do that one.
Yeah, I think that was a much better move for he and his agent. I think it worked out, don't you?
A good choice.
Yeah. By the way, this was very funny because I love that they had a press conference. I love that he's in, listen, I hate that they have left Oakland. People know where I stand. They know where you stand on this whole thing. They had an introductory news conference with him on Thursday, like he was a new free agent that signed. They put the jersey on him and everything. If you're a returning member, can we really put the jersey on you? Isn't that kind of a free agency faux pas?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until I was watching it. But you know what? For the amount of times that I am negative about the No City A's, I think they crushed this. Their
Yeah.
whole purpose is to start getting their new fan base excited about A's baseball again. And A's baseball has a ton of history. And I don't think there's a baseball fan who doesn't want the A's to be successful at some point? Yes, the move from Oakland hurts, but the A's are all about trying to get people invested in the team again. So I like that they went all out with this. I love the extension too. Brent Rooker, hell yeah, that's such a great story. He's the perfect face for the A's. And right before this contract extension became official, he and a bunch of his teammates were at the Sacramento Kings game courtside, lighting the beam. And they went out and they visited an elementary school the next day in the Sacramento area. That was all over my Northern California local news channels. So that was very cool to see. I love this for the A's. And I think they've actually had a pretty decent offseason so far.
They have, in part because they had to, right?
Correct.
If they hadn't gotten their payroll up to, I think it's 105 million, that the Players Association was going to file a grievance against them for
As
not,
they should.
yes, for not spending enough money. So that's why they brought in Luis Severino. It's why they traded for Springs, and it's why they've signed Gio Urshela, and now they've given a nice. Although Brent Rooker, his salary will only be $2 million this year. I think he got a $10 million signing bonus. And by the way, in addition to this 5 years and 60 mil, he has a 22 million option that could kick in, several years down the line for him. To me, the question was, well, would it have made more sense to sell to trade him at his peak performance, right? Because there aren't that many great bats on the free agency market. I actually think that now, by extending him and people knowing exactly what he's going to get paid over the next 5 years, it could make him more attractive. Do you think he makes it to Las Vegas?
I hope so, because I really like what the A's young core looks like right now. They have a couple guys, JJ Bleday. I think Lawrence Butler can really be a dude with a
He
couple
already
years.
is a dude.
Right. Like, I think that he's going to soon become someone that outside of the division, right? Within the season like he had last year.
Mhm.
So I like this young core that the A's have. But it's a good point. 5 years, $60 million is very affordable for someone like Rooker's talent. And I do think he gets some sort of A's bias where he wasn't necessarily the A's weren't necessarily a team that the rest of the industry is watching so heavily. So I do think he's still an underrated name. Hopefully the extension helps a little bit. I don't know. You never know with the A's because every time they get a player that they should keep, they don't. You can go down the list. You think about Olsen, Chapman, Simeon, all these household names that all of a sudden went on to better or different teams and had even better careers. I wouldn't, for Brent Rooker, I hope he's an A because I think he really embodies the culture of what they're hoping to bring to Sacramento and eventually Las Vegas.
Yeah, you make a good point. Josh Donaldson was part of that, where, hey, you're too expensive for us. We don't want you to walk out the door. I just recognized and noticed that when you mentioned all those names, everybody's name ended in N.
That's true.
Chapman, Donaldson, Simeon, Olson. So Rooker R.
Maybe that's why he'll be different.
He's safe.
He's safe.
Did anybody notice that the A's actually finished 500 in the second half of the season last year?
I did not.
Yeah,
I
they
did
did.
not. They're on the rise.
They did. And
They
I'm
have a
not
great
here.
manager too. Like that also helps.
Yeah. Um, I'm not here to call out one of my former employers, but somebody said they put out on social media that Lawrence Butler was an up and coming, breakout candidate this year. I think he broke out last
I
year.
think he broke out.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of can he sustain it, which I think he can. I think that's an electric talent that the A's have.
Yeah, and he's a great dude. We had him on Rose rotation right after the season ended last year, and wow, what a great personality. If baseball's not latching onto that guy,
What are we
you
doing?
got to reevaluate. Got to reevaluate. It's that simple. Hey, today's episode of Baseball Today, it is sponsored by Indeed. Just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. Now, how can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. So when it comes to hiring, Indeed, really all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, you actually post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so you can reach the people that you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Baseball Today listeners, you're going to get $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/baseball. Just head on over to Indeed.com/baseball right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this very podcast. Indeed.com/baseball. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. All right, we continue on. Earlier this week on Monday's show, we said which team out there has not done enough for you, like needs to you step on the accelerator a little bit. And I was like, Cincinnati Reds, what's going on? I get it. You brought back Nick Martinez. You made a trade. You sent out Jonathan India. You brought in Brady Singer. But other than that, you haven't done anything. And then a couple hours later, the Cincinnati Reds have a new player. It is Gavin Lux from the Los Angeles Dodgers. So he heads there for a former third-round pick and a competitive balance selection as well. Now, here's the deal, Katie. Matt McClain is back and healthy this year, hopefully, so he'll play second. You got Ellie at short. Gavin Lux came up as a middle infielder. Does trading for Gavin Lux make sense for Cincinnati?
I think so, because when you think about how the 2024 season started for the Reds, they thought they had a bunch of guys, and a bunch of their guys started the season hurt, and I really think it derailed their season early. You can never have too much depth, especially when you're looking at this Reds depth chart. I mean, from a pitching standpoint, I think the Reds have a really good chance to contend in this NL Central. And I'm not just saying that because the NL Central has not done much. I think this is a good roster. I like Hunter Green and Brady Singer at the top of the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
The Reds bullpen has, I think, been underrated in years prior. When you're looking at the infield, though, Matt McClain, Gavin Lux, Noelvi Marte, Ellie, like these are all guys that I think can play interchangeably. And it remains to be seen how Terry Francona is going to utilize the Reds lineup. But coming from or covering an organization where versatility is pretty much the name of the game and how they roll out their lineup, I think it makes a lot of sense. You can never have too many good players. See the Los Angeles Dodgers as a prime example. So while there may not be a designated everyday position for Gavin Lux, he's versatile. You can move him around the infield. And of course, the DH helps as well. So yeah, I like it. I like what the Reds have done so far this offseason. They've by far in the NL Central had the best offseason, but low bar.
I think it's a good move that could turn into a good plus move, and I don't think it'll ever be a great move. I don't know if that's right, but that's the way I'm going to go with. So last year, Reds fans, if you want to spin it in the positive sense, you'll say his OPS was nearly 900 in the second half, and that is true. His OPS was also 562 in the first half, where he played 17 more games than the second half. So, but just because we have a recency bias, we're like, but look what he did in the second half. Yeah, but what makes you think he's not going to resort back to what happened in the first half? I like Gavin Lux. He's been through a lot. He was a highly touted prospect for a long time. And then when he finally got his shot to be an everyday guy, he blows out his knee in spring training and things change for him. And, with the signings that they have made in the offseason and with the commitment they've made to Mookie Betts at shortstop, it just felt like there wasn't a spot for him in LA. Now, I think in the perfect world, the Reds want him in that lineup every day against right-handed pitching. You don't want him in there against left-handed pitching. This isn't just a last year thing where his OPS, I think, was sub 400. But just in his career, it hasn't been good. I think it's below 550 or something like that against left-handed pitching. So you need to use him strategically. And I think they'd love him in the outfield, but he hasn't been a good outfielder. And we know that can turn into a disaster. If you start putting people out there that aren't good at playing outfield, I don't know if the Cardinals have done that much, but I don't know. But
yes, they have.
But the Reds have. They want to now, and that can turn into a disaster. It's just you got to be careful here, I would say.
Sure. And again, a lot of it goes down to like, how is Terry Francona going to utilize that lineup every day?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, as coming from, again, watching the Cardinals derail the young careers of players like Jordan Walker in terms of turning infielders into outfielders and not giving them a lot of practice to do so, it is a dangerous game to be playing there with Gavin Lux. But again, I'll stand by it. I like it. I like the depth. You can never have too much of it. And they are constructed in a way to get him consistent playing time. So I like it for the Reds. And I like that the Reds are doing something. I wish other teams in NL Central would follow suit.
And it's not like Gavin Lux hasn't had an opportunity in the outfield. He played almost 250 innings there a couple of years ago. All I'm saying is that his metrics weren't great.
Mhm.
So you can put a guy out there, great, go for it. But yeah, listen, hopefully he figures it out because he is a good, solid player. I'm rooting for him, and I did want the Reds to do something, and they've done something. So maybe we can get more aligned. Who knows? Arbitration settlements all over the board on Thursday. So let's do this fun little exercise. We're going to pick one dude from each league who settled for a decent amount, not somebody who settled for 1.12 million instead of 1.08 million or something. But the person's going to have an interesting storyline attached to them for 2025. So let's start in the American League. Who's your American League pick here?
Well, I went the easy way. I went Vladdy, just because I am so confused by what the Toronto Blue Jays are doing. They're going to sign a free agent at some point, right? Like they have to, right? Are they going to? I don't know. And then are they going to extend Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Who knows? I thought this was a good figure to see what he was going to get in 25. I'm glad they can avoid a trial. Those things can get pretty nasty, those arbitration hearings. But I'm wondering, after I see the figure for a little less than $30 million, is this a precursor to an extension? We've seen teams do this before where they lock down the 2025 rate because they have to. Can they add something on to that? I think the two sides have been pretty far apart. And I just think this is somehow still the most exciting storyline about the Blue Jays because they still haven't done anything else to get their fan base excited. So that's what I'm paying attention to in Toronto land.
Earlier this week on the show, I said, blow it up. And
Really? Ooh,
oh, yeah,
chaotic,
now
Rosie.
I did because you know what? I've been on their bandwagon for several years, and it's just I feel like I'm spinning my wheels if I'm a fan. And a lot of Blue Jay fans are like, "You moron, you don't know anything, shut up." And then some of them are like, "Yep, but let's not let the current front office handle the rebuild." And so I understand all of that. That's a good one. By the way, I think he settled for 28.5 or something like that,
Yes, I
which
think it was 28 something.
which is good work if you can find it. Cal Raleigh, the Seattle Mariners, settled for 5.6 million. So back-to-back 30 home run seasons. The year before that, he hit 27. He was not only a Gold Glover last year, he was the Platinum Award winner in the American League, which is pretty damn special. We talk about the Mariners not having enough pop in the lineup. Don't blame this guy. Now, he's always going to end up right around a 750 OPS, even with these gargantuan power numbers. So he's an interesting dude. And I was having the conversation with my oldest son, Josh. He goes, Dad, who would you rather have in the American League right now, Cal Raleigh or Adley Rutschman? And I was like, ooh,
Wow, good question.
it's not as easy. A year ago at this time, we'd be like, Adley, Adley, Adley. Well, Cal's only a year older than Adley. He's obviously a well-decorated defender that can handle a pitching staff. Everybody loves Adley for his leadership and the hugs and the switch hitting and all of that sort of stuff. But this is the dude who's got the pop.
Yeah.
What say you? It's not so easy, is it?
No, it's not. I think Adley Rutschman gets the name bias. The Orioles are exciting, right?
Mhm.
Anytime you think about Baltimore, you think of that young core, and you just kind of know all those names. They're like, oh, the Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson kind of deal. But that's interesting. And I don't
Mhm.
watch a ton of AL West ball because I'm usually asleep at that time. I will say though, when I heard the 5 million, I thought that was a little low for the season that Cal had. And of course, I don't know what he was making last year, and a lot of these things are based on raises. But that's a good question. I don't know. I think most people are going to tell you Adley because he's the more popular name. But I think if you start looking at the numbers, it's pretty 50-50, right?
Yeah, I think you can make an argument. I think it's a great discussion. So go ahead and have it in our, comments section. Go ahead. Tell us who you like more and
Right
why.
away.
Yeah, go for it. National League, who do you have?
I stuck to what I know here. I went with Ryan Helsley, and the
Good one.
reason is because come October, last October, when the Cardinals announced their plans to have a retool, is what they called it, I thought for sure Helsley would be the first person traded, and the opposite happened. They actually doubled down, and John Mozeliak, the president of baseball operations, said, "No, we would certainly kind of want to try to keep him." Helsley's going to be a free agent after 2025. He was one of, if not the best closers in baseball last year, led the majors with 49 saves, the Cardinals' only all-star. He was making just under $3.5 million in 2024. It goes all the way up to 8.2, a well-deserved raise for Hells here. But the reason why it was so intriguing that the Cardinals were, able to settle is because 2 years ago they took Helsley to arbitration and it was a disaster. I remember him being so open and candid, and this is really appreciative that players do this. That the arbitration process and the hearings really messed him up mentally, and he did not have a good 2023. And those hearings are brutal.
Mhm.
So to me, it would have been so interesting if the Cardinals and Helsley were not able to settle and they spend the whole offseason saying, this is our closer. We want to build a competitive club. We certainly want him to be a part of it. And all of a sudden, we're going to take him to trial again and tell him all the things that he's bad at and why he doesn't deserve to get paid. So it was a little close up towards the end, a buzzer beater agreement, but very happy for Ryan Helsley and for the Cardinals. He's been a homegrown pick, came up through the system. He's been a very good Cardinal for the 10 years that he's been within the organization. So interested to see what they do at the trade deadline. But for right now, it looks like he's going to stay in St. Louis. And to me, the arbitration deal just kind of locked it up.
What uniform is he wearing August 1st?
Oh, my goodness.
It's not going to be a Cardinal.
No, probably not. Philly?
Good one.
Yeah, I'd go Philly.
Which leads right into my name.
Oh, great setup by me.
That away. Good. Woo! Alec Bohm. $7.7 million is what he settled for. And I can't settle on this. Who is he? Is he a guy that you could build around? Because it sure as hell doesn't sound like that's what Philadelphia has wanted to do. There's really has been very, very little talk of an extension with him. Is he the guy that other teams covet as the centerpiece of a trade? Because his name's been bandied about in trade talk. But when you look at it from the other side of things, do you say this is the guy that we really covet? Or is he just kind of a dude? And, last year he made the All-Star team, had a nice run in the home run derby, and then late in the season and he gets benched. Like where are we with him? I don't know. If somebody were to say describe Alec Bohm's career, you could take it a ton of different directions. I don't think we have a defined player yet. And 8 years old, it's just strange.
It is strange. And early in the offseason, I thought the Phillies were going to trade him. At least that was the speculation. It doesn't seem like that now as we sit here on January 10th. Things can happen. It's a long offseason, as they say. And maybe this is the year that he finds out and the Phillies find out what kind of player he really is. The talent's there.
Mm-hmm.
Philly's a hard place to play. That's a hard lineup to be in every day. It's a good lineup. I was looking at those numbers. That easily would have been a top 3 performer on the St. Louis Cardinals last year. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he gets extra scrutiny because he plays for such a powerhouse. I'm not sure if obviously the benching didn't help last year. And the messaging has been very weird this offseason. Do the Phillies want to trade him? Can they trade him? Do they want him to be a part of their future? And I think this is the year that both parties kind of solidify that answer. But it's interesting to see because I think Philly has kind of had a somewhat underwhelming offseason as well so far.
Monday, we have a new episode of the Rose Rotation coming out with Nick Castellanos. And we spend a lot of time talking about the trade rumors surrounding himself and Alec Bohm. And I got to tell you, Castellanos is incredible because there's times where, excuse me, you can ask a question and he will give you a one-word answer, or he will take you on a journey that you just do not expect. And this is part of what we cover with him. That's coming out on Monday. We taped it earlier this week, and it was a fascinating conversation. I know.
Excited.
Yeah, it's actually one I really want everybody to give yourself about 40 minutes and go listen to this. Go do it while you're taking a walk or working out or traveling in the car or whatever you do.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Producer Dan here. Want to let you know that football fans, it is, of course, playoff time, and we've got some exciting games to look forward to, and you can get in on all the playoff action right now with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5 when you use code BASEBALL today. Love the thrill of live betting. DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code BASEBALL today. Bet just $5 on any wager. Get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Back to the show.
Before we get out of here, we're going to leave it on a high note. Thank God for this kid on social media who was pulling cards, it looks like, with his dad, certainly with a relative, and they get a one-of-one Paul Skenes.
Skenes, Skenes, 101, 101.
Easy.
Literally 101, 101. See? Guys, guys, guys. I can't.
What did that come out of? This?
Yeah.
What in the
I can't
world?
breathe.
Oh, the kid's adorable. That's like me when they bring out the dessert cart at some five-star restaurant. Like I'm so excited, although it's not one of one. I mean, I could choose all five, which is usually unfortunately what I do. But that kid was adorable. I needed that in my life.
Oh,
Right
I just love how he pronounces certain words, like
there.
L's were very hard. Oh my goodness, I've watched that video an embarrassing amount of times because it's just so wholesome. It's so baseball. I loved it. And I think after the week that it's been, everyone needs a little bit of that kind of positivity and some wholesome vibes to start the weekend.
Good call on that. Do you have friends who have kids that age, or do you have any nieces or nephews that keep you busy, stuff like that?
So my best friend had the first baby of our group. We've all been friends since elementary school.
Oh,
And when I say every time I go to Target, Miss Parker gets at least 2 new outfits. And I go to Target a lot.
mhm.
So it's so much fun. She's almost to the age of talking, so I cannot wait for her to get there.
And I hear a fur baby in the background.
Happens to me every time I go to my parents' house.
Oh,
They command attention. Apparently, I've been in this room too long.
oh, oh. So they want you to come out and play.
No, they want treats, and they know I'm the weakest link in the house.
Oh, so you're the sucker. You'll give them
I am
whatever.
the sucker. I
Oh,
am.
yeah, yeah. That's the best thing about, by the way, when your friends have kids, or if you're an aunt or something like that, the kids come with receipts. So when you've had enough, you just say, "I would like to return this, please."
Correct. Okay,
And
love you. Bye. Take your
exactly,
baby. Yeah.
that's it. That's it. But
I
then they
get all
grow
the
up.
highlights. That's all I want.
But then your kids, you keep watering them, and they grow up to be 24 and 19, and you send one back to college, and you're like hugging him at the airport, and he's like, "Dad, I got a flight." I'm like, "I know, but just
People are
don't."
sad.
So that's all right. Maybe somebody experienced that earlier this week. I don't know. It's possible. It's possible. Katie Wu, you are the best. Tell us a little bit about when Cardinals territory, how often it comes out.
It comes out twice a week for now, Tuesday and Fridays, most likely. Sometimes things get a little weird when the season starts. So basically, a month from now, how scary, we'll go to a 3 times a week
Mm,
format. My goal is for Trevor Rosenthal and I to get as many guests as possible. It's been a little difficult in the off season because we're not in St. Louis, but I imagine during the season we'll have a rotating cast of players, coaches, former players, and it's just, even if you're not a Cardinals fan, we just talk a lot of random baseball and we get so sidetracked. The main rule for Cardinals territory is there are no rules, and we just wing it. We just wing
good.
it every day. And you can definitely tell because I'm not producer Dan level at all in terms of
Mm,
editing and getting everything to play at the same time. So that is a skill. This is a very aesthetically pleasing show. That is because it has a great producer. That's not something I can add to my titles yet.
I mean, you just made somebody's day. I'm just gonna tell you this. Like he's gonna hold this over our heads for the rest of the year.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I mean, you can just leave us right now. We have to deal with him every day during the season. You know what a chore that is. But all kidding aside, he is the best around. It's why we love him. He's always committed, and he wants to make the show better. And he put in the cool graphics within the last couple of weeks. So this is his baby. He loves it, and we wish you nothing but the best. We aren't competitors in this world. We are supportive of one another, and
We're
so
all friends.
we are. We're
That's how it
friendly.
works.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate you coming in on short notice. I texted you yesterday when I found out Plouffe wasn't available. You're like, "Yep, I'm in.
Yeah, I
I'm
was at
in."
happy hour at Chili's, so
Oh,
that
is
was a
that what
pretty
that
easy
was?
yes. I was like 2 marks in. I was like, hell yeah, Rosie.
Okay,
Yeah, good
nice.
timing.
All right, excellent. Well, if anything we can do to help you in your world, we're just a click away. It's that simple. Okay.
You guys are the best. Love my John Boy fam. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. For our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, who's moved up a few notches on the producer scale, apparently, and our girl Katie Wu from Cardinals territory. I'm Chris Rose. We'll see you next week here on Baseball Today.